All right. Welcome to the Divorce Talk Podcast. This show is the ultimate guide for divorcing or divorced dads ready to rebuild, redefine, and reestablish themselves in their new normal. Divorce is hard, and being a single dad after a divorce is even harder. My name is Jared, and I'm the host of the show. I'm glad you're here because I've been there where you are. Divorced and a single dad, wondering how the heck I was going to get through it. I know the feelings that follow the breakup, and I know a lot of the stressors that you're about to face. Whether you're navigating co-parenting, rebuilding your confidence, redefining who you are as a divorced man, or just trying to make sense of your new normal, you are not alone. And this is the place for you. All right, hi guys. Welcome to the show this week. This week we're going to talk about something that I heard talked about on a different show, actually. I'm a part of a few different Facebook groups, as you guys can imagine, and the majority of them are for divorced dads and people going through a divorce. There's a group or two that I'm on also that has just a mix of men and women, and a lot of the things that get talked about are the hard things, the negative things. As you can imagine, in a divorce, the majority of people that file for divorce are women. And so the majority of the people that are maybe not on board with the divorce or caught off guard by it, or that might be the most upset about it, is the men. What I've seen in my experience is that because the women in general are the ones that are filing for the divorce, the men are the ones that are losing things that they weren't expecting to lose. And in a divorce, the majority of the men end up having to pay alimony, they have to pay child support, and they have to lose time with their kids that they were not planning for either when they weren't the ones that were planning for the divorce. So I see a lot of upset men about this, a lot of upset men and fathers, and sometimes it's women that are upset too about that, but the majority of those issues fall on the men that we experience. And so the struggle that the women have in general that I've noticed is a financial struggle where they're trying to, get on their 2 feet where maybe they didn't used to work and now they have to work all of a sudden. Financially, they're worse off than they were when they were married and they had a spouse that was maybe covering most of it. And these are generalizations because it's the majority, right? So there are definitely situations that do not fit this mold, but in general they do. And so that's the ones I'm speaking about. Now, there's another topic though that both the men and women both have to deal with. There's a struggle that is mutual among both men and women, regardless of what the court ended up saying. And that is what I want to talk about today. That is when there's a religious aspect to your marriage and to your life, how divorce is looked on by your church. And I'm Christian, have been my whole life. And so my beliefs that I grew up learning and being taught, and as an adult as well, are based in the Christian belief. Marriage is a very sacred union. And in my beliefs that I grew up learning and believe to this day is that marriage should be between a man and a wife. And this isn't a political discussion. I'm just going to speak to those terms because those are my beliefs. If you believe otherwise, then that's fine too, because this principle might still apply to you. And that is when you are in a religion that frowns upon divorce. Where do you fit in then when you're going to go through a divorce and you're in that religion? So I can only speak from the Christian beliefs, the Christian side of it. So marriage it's a very holy union. In general, growing up for me, marriages were done by a person of the church, right? They were officiated by like a pastor or a bishop or somebody that was ordained a minister of some kind to be able to officiate the wedding, and that's because it was done in front of God, and maybe in the name of God was your marriage ceremony done. So it's a big thing in a church, especially Christians. I can attest to that in the Christian belief, and I grew up in the LDS church and still am, and so for us, we believe that marriage is meant to be an eternal relationship. And whether you were married in a temple or not, or you were married by a bishop or in a church or a ceremony at a nice venue, whatever it is, usually your marriage was, the wording in your marriage vows from the officiant had to do with either till death do you apart or for time and all eternity. Either way, depending on your beliefs, it was as long as a marriage could be, right? So if you believe that your marriage is going to end at death, then you got married and agreed to be married for that whole time until that day comes that you die. That was the maximum commitment that you could give to your partner. Those that get married for time and all eternity believe that marriages can continue forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And when you get married, you agree to that because that's the maximum commitment that you can show and give to your partner. So when you believe like that, marriage is a big deal. And you don't get married with the intention to end your marriage. But then fast forward through your marriage, and all of a sudden, a lot of us, as we've found out, marriage brings out the hard in every situation, just about. It can, at least. It can bring out the worst in ourselves. It can bring out the worst in our partner. And it can really highlight the difficulty that is life, and that it is cohabitating, and that it is committing to somebody and being faithful to somebody and raising children together and trying to bring two different brains and mindsets together to be one in purpose for different things in life. Marriage is hard, and statistics show that it's been too much for the majority of marriages to last, and unfortunately they end in divorce. Now, what about when your marriage was based in Christian beliefs that your marriage is supposed to last forever, or at least till death, and you decide that you want to cut that short? Then what? Where does that leave you in your church? Where does that leave you with your church leaders? Is it a sin to get divorced? Is it frowned upon? Does it change your status in the church? I believe that people have experienced different things with respect to that in their church and with their church leaders and with their, the congregations that they're in, or their friend circles. I believe that people have experienced different things, but the fact is, when we are contemplating divorce and we have a Christian belief system, we question if this is going to be a problem, or we fear what it's going to be like for us once we finally go down that road. And for the most part, Christians believe in being good people. They believe in being Christ-like, right? We believe that we were given a perfect example in Jesus Christ on how to behave, how to act, how to love, how to serve, how to give, how to forgive, and generally how to live life. And he's our example, and that's the one we follow, and we try to be like him. Jesus Christ was perfect too. He also never made a mistake. He never did anything wrong. He was always loving and serving and forgiving and treating people with love and kindness, and he was always doing the will of his Father. And so if we are to emulate that, and then we find ourselves at this place, this crossroads of, I'm going to potentially end a marriage that was supposed to last forever, is that going to take me away from Jesus Christ's teachings? Is that me choosing the wrong way to go? Is that going to disqualify me from having the Holy Ghost with me, to having that influence of the Spirit with me? Maybe I hold a specific or certain callings or ministries or responsibilities at the church? Am I going to lose the ability to do that? Am I going to have those taken from me because now I'm going to be divorced, or I'm going to go through a divorce? Lots of legitimate fears or concerns. They are very legitimate because we've seen the effects that it can have on other people that have got divorced. Most of us know people that have gotten divorced. But so here's the question that I wanted to talk about. Can you still be a good Christian and get divorced? If you get divorced, are you still a good Christian? Can you still call yourself a Christian? Can you still go to church on Sunday? Just the same as you did before? Will I still get to teach in Sunday school? Will I still get to teach the kids in primary about God and Jesus and marriage and, loving and forgiveness and the atonement and, faith? Will I get to teach the kids these things still in church if I am getting divorced? Because in some people's minds, getting divorced is not okay. It's not a good thing. Some people believe that it is not, that God would not support that. God would not want that. Now, here's my take on it. God does not want that. That is not what he wants for us. He wants us to be married for time and all eternity. He wants us to be happy. There's a scripture that I love. It's literally one of my favorite scriptures ever. It's very short. And it says, men are that they might have joy. That's it. It's that simple, that short. Men are that they might have joy. That's the purpose that we have on this earth. That is why God created us, for us to experience joy. Now, there are ways that we can experience more joy than not. And one of the best joys that we can experience is in a marriage, in a good, healthy marriage, and in a family unit. And so that's really the purpose of what we're supposed to be doing. And as Christians, we believe that is, and that's the whole reason why we get married and have kids, and because we've been taught, and then we learn through experience that literally is the way we can experience the most joy in life. So if we're going to now go get divorced, where does that put us, right? My belief is that men are that they might have joy. Now, what if we're in a marriage where we are not experiencing joy? We are not able to experience joy. What if our relationship and communication and the way we treat each other, what if it has gotten so bad and we've tried our hardest and we cannot overcome that? And we cannot experience joy in this marriage anymore. Does God want us to stay in that? Because we've committed to be married till death do us part, or for time and all eternity. And if we are experiencing the opposite of joy, does God actually want us to stay in that state? I'm of the belief that he does not. I've been through multiple divorces, which means that I've been through multiple relationships that did not turn out the way either of us wanted them to. I've been in marriages where the words were till death do you part, and I've been in a marriage where the wording was for time and all eternity. And I'm currently divorced, single, not in any of those marriages. I have no earthly nor spiritual binding to anybody right now. So where does that put me in the Christian world? What's my position or stance in the church then? Does God love me? Yes. Will he always love me? Yes. This goes for you, by the way, too, not just me, of course. But I know this because of my own experience. And I'm nothing special. I'm nobody more special to God than anybody else is. So this does go for you. Okay. God will forgive us, first of all, for our sins. That's the whole point of what Jesus came to the earth to do, was to atone for our sins, right? So let's say that we are sinning by getting divorced and ending our marriage. If that is a sin, will God forgive us? Yes. Yes, he will. No doubt in my mind, no question. So to me, that brings me a little bit of comfort. It takes a little bit of the heat off the idea or the fear of, well, what's the church going to think if I get divorced? That takes that off, because you know what? And some people have to look just beyond, peel back that extra layer and look beyond that and say, you know what? What is the church? Okay. Or who is in the church? Whose opinions matter? Is it the person that's judging me for it? Is it the church that's condemning me for it? Is it God that's condemning me for it? And then who matters? The person, the church title or calling or leader, or God? In the perfect world and in the perfect church, God will trickle down through its leaders all the way down to us, and we should still feel God's love. We should not feel shame for going through divorce. We should not experience that from the church leaders. If we are all, and if the leaders are truly being Christians, then they will love and they will forgive and they will support. So where does that put us? If we're going through divorce, to me, that brings comfort. To me, that takes the shame that we might feel, takes it off the table, throws it in the trash. Where does shame come from? Where does guilt come from? It does not come from God. It comes from the devil. So if you're a Christian and you believe in God, you believe in the devil, there's that side and there's that side to it. God wants to love us and support us. He does not want us to feel the shame. So if we are experiencing divorce, going through it, guess what? God's not going to be rubbing our face in the mud for it. He's there to help lift us. He's there to support us and love us through it. So, can you still be a Christian, a good Christian, and go through divorce? My answer is yes. Okay, my answer is yes. Jesus Christ loves us. He gave us that perfect example. He gave us that example of being perfect, right? But we know that we're not, and we're not going to be, and that's okay. We are meant to love. We are meant to serve. Okay, but then we're meant to forgive. And we've been promised that we can be forgiven too. So if we're going to go through life and be in this marriage where we are not experiencing joy, I believe very strongly that God will support us in getting out of what might be an unhealthy and unsafe or a toxic relationship or situation, to get out of that, to then move forward and experience joy. Okay, that's what he wants for us. And if it takes a divorce to do that, then he will support us in that. Does not make me a bad Christian. And I can tell you this too, that my lowest and hardest points of my life that I've experienced have been going through divorce. And some people might say, oh, well, then that's proof. You know, if you weren't going to go through a divorce, you wouldn't be experiencing such negative experiences and emotions and feelings. No, that is not true at all. We're going to experience those things because life is hard. Okay, but what do we do in those hard moments? I know that me personally, in the lowest and hardest moments of my life, I turned to God, and he did not abandon me in my divorce process. He did not abandon me. He didn't leave me alone. And so, in my multiple divorces that I've experienced, am I a good Christian still? Aside from whatever else in my life, right? Was divorce making me not a good Christian anymore? Nope, because I can tell you, I was being the most Christian person I could be, the most Christ-like person that I could be in that process. Because what was I doing? I was turning to God on my knees, praying and pleading with him more than I ever had in my entire life. Because I couldn't do it without him. I needed him. And that is really what it's all about. And that's why he's there. That's what Jesus taught the whole time, was to turn to God. And that Jesus would carry our burdens for us. And that we could give our burdens to him. And so if we're going through an experience, a relationship where we have been stripped of our joy, and we've tried everything we can to get it back on track and to experience joy again in our marriage, and we can't, maybe it is okay to get a divorce. At the very least, even if we weren't supposed to, and if that's a choice we made and we went forward or went through with it, God's not going to abandon us still. Okay, we still get to believe in God. We still get to follow Christ. We still get to learn his teachings and be Christ-like towards others. And guess what? Ultimately, God has blessings for us, like massive blessings that we can't even comprehend yet. And they're there waiting for us. No matter what we do in this life, he loves us and he can forgive us. And again, we're talking about if there's this stigma of divorce being a bad thing, like if it's a sin and what's my status going to be in the church. That's the angle that we're talking about. So it sounds heavy and it sounds like, we're being forgiven or the atonement's there to help, forgive us of that. But I also believe divorce is not a sin. Divorce itself is not a sin. Now, what do we do every day? How do we act? How do we act towards our ex while we're going through divorce or after? Those can be sins, right? If we are being disrespectful, if we're talking very unkind, if we're, withholding things from our spouse, our ex, just to spite them, or doing whatever we're doing just to spite them, that is the opposite of Christ-like behavior. And that, I would say, is a sin. And we could be judged for that. Okay, that is not being very Christ-like. A good Christian would not be doing that. Okay, we would be patient. We would be humble. We would be understanding. There's the long-suffering aspect to it, to being a good Christian. And in a divorce, it really tests all those things in ways that nothing else in the world in life that we would experience would. And so I would say that, yes, you absolutely can still be a good Christian, even if you're going through divorce. It's just all in how you do it. I would also argue that those that are intentionally the most Christ-like they can be will have a better divorce process because they will be patient. They will be humble. They will be long-suffering. They will be forgiving. Okay? It doesn't mean we need to just let whatever crap happens to us from our spouse or our ex. It doesn't mean that we have to just let it all happen and do nothing. Okay. We can still be very intentional and in what we want through the divorce and what we want out of the divorce and what we want things to be like once we're through it. But it does not mean that we treat people negatively, or our ex especially. Okay. So the question and answer to me is, can we still be a good Christian and go through divorce? Yes, we can. Okay. Now, will things change at church for you after your divorce? Probably. You'll probably experience some negativity. So my advice to you, and again, this was from my experience too, but my advice would be to just expect it. Expect it, anticipate it, know that it's probably going to happen. And make a plan for you on how you're going to handle it, how you're going to deal with it when you do experience it finally. Your friends are going to change. For some reason, some people feel like they have to pick sides in a divorce. And so you'll experience that. There may be maybe you were a team teacher with your spouse at church. And so that might change, where obviously you're not going to be able to do that anymore. I know that I've seen a lot of married couples work together, like in the nursery or teaching classes together. So sometimes those kinds of things will change. Just expect it. Know that that's going to happen. There's going to be some changes. In the perfect world, or in, God's perfect church, we don't feel negative effects from going through divorce because, in the perfect world or in the perfect church, we would experience love and acceptance and whatever from everybody, including the leaders of the church. But quite frankly, not everybody's experienced divorce, and not everybody really knows how to be around people that are going through divorce, what to say, how to act. And so It might not be perfect, and it might not always be what we want or need in the moment, but just expect that. Know ahead of time that things like that might happen. But it does not mean that you and God aren't good. It does not mean, again, if we're being as Christ-like as we can be through a divorce, God's not going to abandon us. His Spirit is not going to leave us. Jesus Christ's teachings still apply. His example is still there. Okay, his love and forgiveness is still there. And we will not be abandoned when we need him most. Again, speaking from experience, I probably have never been closer to God than I was while I was going through my divorces. I had some very, in particular, some very, very low moments. And all I could do was pray. All I could do was get on my knees and pray and ask God to just help me survive and to help me feel like it's not, the world isn't collapsing on me. And guess what? Made it through. Made it through another day. And sometimes I had the thoughts come to me of, give this person a call. I called my mom a lot. Now I hadn't done that before, but I called my mom a lot. I called my dad. There was some times where I was having some first time ever panic or anxiety attacks, and I was freaking out, didn't know what to do. Praying, the thought to call somebody that might be able to help. Did it, called them. They helped me. They coached me through what to do, and I was okay, and I made it through. So sometimes that's the way God's not going to abandon us. And you know what? That's how we can know that even though we might be going through a divorce and breaking this relationship, marriage commitment that we had committed to for time and all eternity, or till death do we part, even though we're doing that, and in the Christian belief of marriage and the sanctity of marriage, even if we're breaking that, God does not leave us alone. He will not abandon us. He will send those angels in our lives through people or thoughts or feelings that will help us know that he's there and that we can get through it. You guys, divorce is really hard. It's very, very hard. And this is kind of a serious thing. And when I'm all by myself doing these podcasts, it's hard for me to really go outside of, the serious train of thought. But there's a lot of good that comes through good intentional decisions, right? That's the whole point. And sometimes divorce is that. And if we are being intentional with our decisions and choices every day through the process, then that light does come at the end of the tunnel. Okay, that reprieve from the pain and suffering that we might feel in our bad marriages, that reprieve does come. And I know God supports that. And he does want that in certain situations when he knows when we've done all we can do, then this is the way through it. And then God is there to help us the rest of the way. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers some of the question or fear that some people have as they're contemplating divorce, or if it's the right thing for them to do. Or maybe you even already know that it's the right thing for you to do. You're just scared of what might happen, in that ripple effect, because there's a lot of ripple effect from divorce. And yeah, even in the church setting. So I hope this was helpful. It's a heavy topic. It's a tough one, but thanks for joining me on this one. Thanks for sitting through it. If you're not of the Christian belief, then, maybe this didn't apply to you as much as it did other people, but hopefully it's still, hopefully there's still some nuggets for you in there that could be helpful in your situation. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for tagging along on this one. If you got any questions, comments, I would love to hear them. Issues you want me to talk about, topics you want me to discuss on the show, I would love to know about them so that I could do that. My goal here is to help you guys through your divorce process and then afterwards as well, because it's not easy. It's not easy going through it. It's not easy once you're past it. I've been there, done that, and am in it also, passed through the divorce, but now as a single dad, co-parenting, all that stuff. So I'm here for you. Let me know how I can help. See you on the next one. Thank you for tuning in to the Divorce Talk podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show and were able to take something from it that will help improve your own personal divorce journey. If you found today's Divorce Talk helpful or at least mildly entertaining, depending on the platform you listened on, subscribe, leave a review, give the show a rating, and share it with a fellow dad or anyone else going through a divorce who could also use a laugh or a little guidance. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at The Divorce Talk Dad so that you don't miss out on the daily tips, advice, and sometimes even a little humor that'll help get you through the week. Send me a DM if you're going through it and want to connect. Until next time, keep showing up, keep moving forward, and don't forget, you're doing better than you think. See you next week.